All right, today I am speaking with Sebastian Lopez from Concha y Toro Winery. He is in Chile. He's going to actually, Sebastian, welcome. Why don't you tell us where you are and what's going on right there right now?
Well, how are you doing, Brian? Thank you for the opportunity. Well, I'm in Chile. I'm in my house in mid 80s. It's so it's nice weather. We are in lockdown in Chile, but that's the part that is not that comfortable. But again, great weather and again with my family and everything is great. I hope everybody's
Excellent.
safe as well.
Well, we were just talking a second ago. You were telling me kind of about, before we get into the other stuff, tell me
Yeah.
a little bit about what you were saying a minute ago about the harvest season that's going on right now. So you're in 2021 harvest and
2021 harvest. We uh, we have started a little difficult because it was a kind of the temperature was a little higher in the January, February. The rain season was very normal, which is a good thing. But here we are in Chile, we have a really dry summer, normally dry spring. So it's about having the ripeness of the fruit. So basically, it went a little faster than normal, but then slowed down dramatically by March 8th. So we were like March 7, it was mid 90s, and then March 8th we were basically really cold. Huh?
yeah, what's really cold though?
But Brian,
What's really cold?
give me 1 second because my battery. I don't know if we're gonna start all over, but my
Oh,
battery
okay.
is running out.
We can
So I
start
have
over
to
again. It
recharge.
doesn't matter.
I apologize.
That's what video editing is all about. It's all good. I
Okay.
can clip that right out of there.
Okay, so let me start all over again with the seasons.
Okay.
So we had our year in Chile was going great. Rainy season was really good. We have more rain than we've been having for several years. Temperature was good, but I would say we have a warmer January and February, which is our summer season. And then by March 7, uh, which I remember because we were having, it was really warm, mid 90s. Then the temperature dropped dramatically and we started having cold for our standards in the summer. It went to low 80s.
Right.
And that basically what it does, everything goes to slower. What you don't want is when it's too warm, you get ripeness, but the ripeness has to be in a period. You cannot be right away. So
Right.
basically now it's slowed down and we see that it's going to take longer if this temperature still, and if no rain comes. So good vintages, what I want to say, Brian, they're really stressful.
Right.
In terms of you don't know what is going to happen. We're watching the weather, but so far we're good. But we went to those those again, Mother Nature.
Right. Well, I mean, obviously you're farming, and farming
Yeah.
is in a lot of ways dictated by the weather and what happens with Mother Nature. So just real quick before we kind of move on again, explain a little bit about what might be the impact of having a longer growing season because you have slightly cooler temperatures now. What's going to happen to the grapes? What will be the effect in the wine?
The grape is going to basically, when you achieve the ripeness, you're going to have tannins that are more they're not ripe, they're more rounded.
Right.
Because you may achieve your ripeness, but then it's not, you're losing the elegant. You get those power bombs, and what you want is elegant sophistication. You don't want ripeness is not a simple word. You want ripeness means everything for us, especially in wines that are high quality. You want extremely balanced. You don't want the sugar just goes up, because sometimes you will get the sugar high, but the tannins are still green. And you get that confusion of a lot of fruit, but rustic. You want elegance, you want a maturity that will persist long time on the wine, that the wine will age longer. But if
Right.
you just get, if it's just getting sugar, that the berry is just right, it's just sweet, it's not enough, because
Right.
you lose the tannins.
Yeah. So when we talk about it, I guess, from my point of view or experience, is like you look at the ripening of kind of the the tannins and the flavors and the color, the pigmentation, everything that comes from the skins. But then you also look at the sugar ripeness, and ideally you want those things to kind of come together at the same time for whatever grape it is that you're growing, so that you have sort of what we would call optimal ripeness, so the best benefit.
100%. And just for everybody to, is one thing that is very simple to see. Whenever you go to any vineyard, you pick the berry and the seed is still green, and you want the seed. So the seed that gives all those tannins, sometimes it's important to be ready as well. It's not just one element, there are multiple elements. And that's a concern when it's too hot, that you get one element,
goes really fast and the other ones can't catch up. Excellent. All right, well, I appreciate that. So we didn't really introduce you. What is you work for Concha y Toro in Chile, but what is your job?
I work for Concha y Toro in Chile for this year is my 22nd year.
Okay.
So it's my only job out of college. I've been working. I'm responsible for the U.S. market. I work in several jobs, but I work the harvest with the team of Don Melchor for almost 5 years. So and today I'm responsible for all the high-end wines of Concha y Toro in the U.S.
Okay.
And that's including wines from Argentina, some wines from California. So it's a huge responsibility, but it's I hope I can explain and show you what does this mean, these wines of Concha y Toro. I think we have a unique signature of these wines, and that's been my biggest responsibility. Again, is the U.S. with the fine wines.
So I would guess that normally, we're still under pandemic lockdown kind of conditions, but normally you would be traveling to the United States on a regular basis.
I do. I travel. I decided to I've been living in the U.S. many times and for longer periods, in New York, California, and now I'm living in Chile. And I define it this way: I'm commuting to the U.S. So because of the easy to travel, I will fly on a Sunday to the East Coast and come back on Wednesday night. So I will be, that's 32 weeks a year. So I travel quite a lot. And when I'm in the West Coast, I travel back on Thursday because I just want to have 3 full days of work mostly, or stay maybe more. So it's planes are part of my life. And last year it was a little difficult, but I was able to travel, I would say around after the first part, as June forward, I will say around 10, 12 times. But I've been,
so you were tough. You were still going.
Yes, I was able to travel. At the end, when became the test easier, because I come in, I will test, I will come back test, and that will be the like a new MO to traveling, which is
just part of the process.
Part of the new reality.
Yeah. So what is lockdown like in Chile?
Lockdown in Chile is kind of difficult, right? Because our lockdown is formally lockdown. Because I work in the winery and we are in harvest, I can go to the winery. I have a special permit, but basically we cannot leave the house.
Right.
So when we are in lockdown, like we are this week, it's formally lockdown. You cannot leave. And if you want to go to the supermarket, my wife has 2 permits a week to go to the supermarket for 2 hours.
Wow. Okay. So you're pretty restricted.
So basically, that's the only. It's very formal and very strict, but it's very difficult as well.
Yeah,
very
I
difficult. I'm lucky. I have a nice house. I have the space, but it's difficult. It's not an easy situation. But again, we're getting better. A lot of vaccinations, and so we hope to get out of this pretty soon.
Yeah, we all do. So, all right. Well, let's talk about Concha y Toro. Tell me a little bit. This is a winery that has a long history. So, in the shortest possible way, can you just tell us a little bit about the history of the winery and bring us up to speed for today?
Concha y Toro started 1883. That's key. So it's over 130 years. We are. I would say, to explain Concha y Toro, Chile is very unique. Chile is a long and thin country in the bottom of South America, almost. Just for you to imagine the length from Florida all the way to Alaska. So it's far. But at the same time, it's really important to understand in Chile, or the southern hemisphere, north is warm, south is cold, the opposite of the northern hemisphere. So we own, because of the weather and because I think the uniqueness of Concha y Toro, we own over 12,000 acres, but split in 40 different vineyards in 9 different valleys. So we basically, the philosophy of the company has been planting the right variety in the right, in this concept of terroir, which is so mythical, which is the right weather, soil. And for us, we're looking for a temperature which is not high, but also temperature which is higher or low elevation. I'm here in Santiago, which is 2,100 feet, which is totally different than, closer to the ocean. So Concha y Toro philosophy has been finding different terroirs, different soils for the wine, for growing the right variety. And that's been for 130 years old. We are one of the largest winery, very proudly, around the world. We are present in 135 countries. And in the US, we're the leading Chilean importer and one of the global exporters. So Concha y Toro covers every price segment. And I think we have a link in the style of wine in every one of them. But Concha y Toro, the biggest important philosophy is terroir. In Argentina, we own a winery in California. So basically respecting that, it's something you will see in the wines, hopefully in the dinner.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the different levels of wines that I use or I see out in the market, and my first introduction years ago to Concha y Toro was kind of at the very value oriented kind of range, and I think that's where a lot of people have. But sometimes if we forget that you guys make wines, really exciting wines, kind of in the mid tiers, and then really some of the most premium wines out there.
And from those value wines to the top wine, you see a common denominator in the varietal. There are wines that you clearly are going up, but you clearly see a common denominator or a link between those. So it's a winemaking philosophy that respect the varietal, respect the terroir, that is clear. And I think that's why we use Concha y Toro in every single wine, because we really respect that philosophy.
Yeah, I was tasting some of these wines recently for an event that we're doing, and I hadn't really had a lot of recent experience with the Casa range, the sort of mid-tier range, and those wines really, they retail for like $15 to $20 basically, and they showed really well. And what was kind of exciting also, obviously, if you have a little experience with Chile, Carmenere, which is not a grape that you find almost anywhere really, the wine's great, and I taste Carmenere with people, and they're like, they've never really had it, or maybe they've only had 1 or 2 here and there, but they taste it and it's like, mind-boggling. Tell me a little bit about how you guys handle Carmenere.
Oh, it's such a unique thing. We harvest Carmenere, and I can tell you, I will not say last year. Last year was a tricky year for COVID, but
sure.
The last Carmenere was harvested May 22nd. And May 22nd for just to California is November 22nd, because this is the key of Carmenere. Carmenere is elegant, is unique, but the only way to have a good Carmenere is harvested late, because if you harvest early, back to the beginning of the conversation, Brian, you get some green elements. In order to avoid those green elements, you have to wait. And it's almost fall, waiting for the stress, Brian, because rain is coming. We don't know if it rains. And we wait to get the full ripeness. And when you get the full ripeness of Carmenere in a beautiful vineyards with the leaves are red, it's amazing. And we discovered Carmenere by accident. Today's, I feel old, it's 30 years ago. I remember when I was 20 years ago, I was saying 10 years ago, but almost 30 years ago, we have it mixed. We harvested like Merlot, but the key was, I think the uniqueness of Carmenere is that in the weather has given us the opportunity to harvest later and wait. If you wait, you get one of the most amazing wines. The color of the wine, deep. The flavor, elegance. It has has the intensity, but the elegance that is almost a velvet in the mouth. I think that's very unique. But again, we have to, and we're really committed, being the last grape to harvest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were talking about that, you know, that time frame of the harvest getting extended, and obviously May 22nd is way out there for almost any region. But it's amazing that a red grape like that, you know, harvesting such at a late period of time, but obviously benefiting from that. So yeah, no, the Carmenere that I tasted was really exciting and just absolutely delicious and fit really well between, you know, my expectation of what maybe Merlot or Malbec might be versus Cabernet. Typically, you know, for me, Carmenere doesn't quite have the tannin structure that Cabernet does, but it's got that darker fruit and intensity. Is there anything kind of like particular about Carmenere from a flavor point of view that you like, and how, you know, what do you like to eat it with? What's sort of the typical pairing, or is there a typical pairing?
When you get the Carmenere, for me, because doesn't have, of course, those tannins, but has a little bit of that spiciness in the Carmenere. You know, that's again, I like with a lot of flavor dishes that they don't have the, you know, I will not do it with a meat, I will do it with steak, but for me, with a black-ended fish, that would be, you know, because those flavors, but the meat is not something overpowering. I think for me, Carmenere is kind of there are two types of pairing of wines. One is like meat, Cabernet and steak that is going like side by side in the mouth. But for me, Carmenere is another part of the dish. It's kind of another element. So it's kind of a complement of the dish, and you're putting in your mouth the you know, the bite of something, and then the Carmenere is another part of the dish, and that's what I look at pasta with a lot of flavor, but I like my best one has been the black-ended, like a fish, like a swordfish black-ended. For me, was like a full experience with the Carmenere. Nice. Because of those spiciness, but the softness, the intensity, but the softness. You don't have the fight in the mouth. You have just as a complement.
Yeah, people, you know, we have in our, you know, in my experience, we have, I work with restaurants that have seafood as kind of their focus. And so we serve a lot of red wine sometimes with seafood, and people are surprised at that because they, you know, they're still kind of in the mindset of white with seafood and red with meats. But, you know, we'll serve them a wine that actually pairs up with seafood, and they're like, wow, this is great, because they're not used to experiencing it. And as long as you kind of, you know, you take the fish or whatever the seafood is, and you have the complementary set on the plate, we call it, that has, you know, some of the flavors or spices or, you know, whatever it is between the starch and the vegetables and the sauces and stuff.
I completely really agree. Well. Completely agree that sometimes somebody, if they use a red wine or a Pinot Noir that is too light for a fish that is super intense, you know, it's the intensity of the dish needs an intense wine as well, you know.
Yeah, I agree. Totally. Hey, speaking of intensity, one of the other wines that I picked up on our tasting was and correct me if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, but was the Terroir Sauvignon Blanc. Yes. And the one that I had was the Block 5 Los Baldos vineyard from Casablanca. That wine was an explosion of flavor and fruit. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we started with that wine in first vintage was 2000. It's in an area called Casablanca, and terruño means terroir. So it's but it's a single block. So a block within the vineyard. Just to give you an idea, what is Casablanca? Chile, it's very thin. So from my house that I'm in the hills of the Andes to the ocean, it's only 110 miles. So if I go, and this is the uniqueness, from 95 degrees in the summer, I cross another hill, a tunnel, get to Casablanca, and the temperature drops to 65. Right. So because the ocean is extremely cold in Chile, you know, everywhere. So the influence, so it's a coastal influence, cooler, and for Sauvignon Blanc is great. And Sauvignon, and we use a couple of clones, a UC Davis clone, clones that they are very Sauvignon Blanc, the new style of Sauvignon Blanc, very New Zealand, but I think it's a yeah, but it wasn't. But because of the soil, it's intense, and this is it's longer. It has some for me it's citrusy, but it's more than citrusy. It's like green apple in the mouth. It's such an intense thing that is.
Yeah, that's what I like about it. I mean, with the New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs, we're sort of used to that real tropical passion fruit,
Yes.
lime extraction. This one had a little bit more. It wasn't quite as intense as that, but it had great, like you said, it had great length to it, and not quite as tropically, but like really kind of, that green apple, a little bit of grapefruit kind of thing. So for me, it kind of fit a nice balance between what a lot of people are used to with, say, Sancerre, which is a little bit more austere and mineral-driven style,
100%.
versus the New Zealand pungent style.
I would say that it has in the beginning you get that Sauvignon, that New Zealand, but then when you put it in your mouth, you say, wow, this is, you get the Sancerre, you get the not that the intensity. What I'm trying to say, intensity is deep wine. For example, even the citrusy for me is more like a sweeter citrusy than that lime that some people like. I don't think, but here because of the sunny, cold, please, 65, 70 is not that, but it's and we harvest early. We harvest quite early in the early for us. We harvest in around big end of February. Yep. So, but it's been sunny every single day. And but again, it's a small selection. We produce from that no more than 1,000 cases.
Oh, wow. So the one question I did have about that, you have I tasted the block 5. I don't know if there's other blocks that are made, but one of the things that I always look at, like with Sancerre, for instance, is obviously soil is a major factor in how the style of that wine is kind of derived with the limestone, based soil, the calcareous based soils. What kind of soil do you have in that vineyard or that block that might affect
limestone? Very similar. We have and it's unbelievable because you know how the limestone does with the water, how they hold that amount of water. It's especially when we have a really dry season. So that's why you saw in that wine that minerality. The minerality is because the limestone soils that we found in most of the areas closer to the ocean. You get a little bit in that wine, and I think, and again, when I said minerality, it's almost salty,
right?
And that comes from those type of soils.
Yeah, people don't realize like rocks can actually absorb and hold water, and that's what's kind of key about limestone. It sucks in a lot of water that helps vines. Let's say it's a rainy season over the winter, helps those vines survive through a dry summer or drought season.
And we look at those soils and we analyze it, and it's full of minerals, full of rich minerals, and all of that going to. So because just exactly what you say, some people think, everybody like the stress. And the stress works great for Cabernet, not for Sauvignon Blanc. Right. And that's the importance of not planting every varietal in every place. We try to, that area, we plant a Cabernet Sauvignon, and I don't think you would be calling me about that wine.
Right. Well, I mean, that's where you guys get the name. I mean, the expression of terroir there. So, all right. So let's talk real quick go back to history a little bit. The founder of the winery, his name was?
Don Melchor.
Don Melchor, and you guys make a fairly famous and well-respected and highly reviewed Cabernet wine from. Well, tell me, it's named after him. It's the Don Melchor Cabernet, basically. So tell me where that wine comes from and what's so special about
it. That wine comes from an area. It's called Puente Alto Vineyard. It's right in the foothills here in Santiago, in the foothills of the Andes. To give you an idea, the temperature in that vineyard, in the peak of the summer, you get to high 90s, and then you get to, at night, mid 50s. Oh, wow. So that's the drop. The day and night different temperature is unique. A lot of sun, a cold breeze, but in this case, it's exactly the opposite of what we're talking about the Sauvignon Blanc. Poor soil, extremely poor. Just, I would say the first layer is a foot of soil, and then it's just stones. And the roots go deeper, searching for water, extremely stressed. And we believe it's probably one of the top terroirs in the world. And let me tell you why, because as different of a great wine, we produce a similar amount of wine with the high-end terroirs. It's not about a small, minuscule amount of wine. Here we produce still small, around 9,000 cases for that kind of wine is because you have a terroir that can provide you the quality, but also the vineyards to provide you to, we believe it's a Cabernet Sauvignon, and we call it a blend of different Cabernets from the same vineyard, because we have mapped it in a way that we have areas we are harvesting a month apart within the same vineyard, 120 acres. So we manage, it's been 32 vintages. It's 32, 1987 was the first one. So our knowledge of that vineyard, Brian, is what makes this wine, the vineyard makes the wine great, but we're making greater because the winemaker, Enrique, has been almost 20 years making the wine. And he knows by the almost plant by plant. So we are harvesting right on time and blend it all together in a way that is very almost magical. So that's why we added in some vintages from 87 to 95, 100% Cabernet. 95, we added 3% Merlot, then 100% until 2001 when we started to use some Cabernet Franc. We went back a little Petit Verdot, but again, respecting a Cabernet Sauvignon. Right. What you're going to drink here is a Cabernet Sauvignon,
so the
pure expression.
So do you change that based on the vintage and what the vintage presents, or
yes,
it doesn't sound like it's a formula.
We have some blocks of Cabernet Franc, we have some blocks of Petit Verdot, we have some blocks of Merlot that we use one vintage and we haven't used it again. The whole objective is they will make the Cabernet expression better. So if those 3% of Cabernet Franc will make the Cabernet better, it will go.
Right.
So and that's it.
And not to dwell too much on the winemaking, but once you go through that process and you figure out what you're going to use, or maybe you haven't even selected it yet. I mean, I'm assuming there's a barrel aging program as well.
Around 14 months, and we vary from. But today, if you go on average, 60% new and 40% use.
Okay, so not too much.
No, but again, we're going every vintage based on the Cabernet Sauvignon. We don't want to overpower and respect it. And around 14, 15 months in barrel, and we don't release the wine until another 15 months in bottle.
Okay, so
that's it. That's how we do it every year. Around every July, June, we release it again. Nice. Every vintage.
Okay. Excellent. So Concha y Toro, just to kind of wrap this up a little bit, Concha y Toro, a lot of history, a lot of different vineyard sourcings, producing multiple tiers and value-oriented wines up to the premium levels, but quality and terroir driven style wines from across the board. I don't know, anything else you want to add, because you guys
I just feel that
yeah,
our wines, you use the Marqués de Casa Concha at the beginning when you are very traditional. We're not trying to, Chile is a traditional winemaking area of the world, even though it's a new world. It's very traditional. However, we work in getting the best expression of the varietal. We don't want to go create something new. We're trying to respect the varietal, and I think the wines you're going to try will represent very varietal wines, and that's seems simple, but believe me, that is a challenge every year to respect the varietal.
No,
I think that's the expression that, or what we feel or we believe as a company, the family who owns it believe it, and that's how we work every year.
Yeah, and I think that totally makes sense, especially in a market like the United States. I'm sure your experience is that American drinkers can relate to that, because you guys have varietals on the label, which is helpful, versus Europeans. A lot of times are tough to understand sometimes with their names. But stylistically, you guys fit. Like when you say traditional, I think in my experience at least, that traditional kind of takes its influences from Europe, places like Bordeaux with Cabernet and Merlot and Carmenere, et cetera. So stylistically, maybe traditional European, but more, I hate to do the old world, new world kind of thing, but you have that fruit and you have the voluptuousness, but it's actually, to me, a little bit different than California. So you fit this nice area between that European traditional style versus, say, what we're used to in the United States with more fruit, and it creates a nice balance. So
and believe me, and I think owning wineries in Argentina, owning wineries in California, have give us an understanding of every country philosophy, but at the end, the company use the philosophy. Look, a Cabernet in California is different a Cabernet in Chile. However, both are respecting that terroir. What the wines have a link. Concha y Toro makes stylistically this similar concept, different according respecting what it is. You know, sometimes you get to a higher alcohol in some countries, but again, respecting the varietal. And I think that's something that is the biggest philosophy of the winery.
Great, I think it works. So just real quick, tell me if anybody's interested, what's the name of the winery in Argentina and California that you own?
The winery in Argentina is called TRIVENTO.
TRIVENTO, yep.
TRIVENTO. And in California, we own the FETZER vineyards.
FETZER, yep.
Yep. So
actually, I did a segment with gentleman from BONTERRA earlier.
BONTERRA, we are the largest organically. So we're still innovating, but even within the organics, we're trying to again respect the varietal, and that's a key issue with us.
Right. So excellent. Well, not to kind of keep dragging this out, but I like I said earlier to you, I've been to Chile and I've been to the connoisseur vineyards, which
yes,
there's a lot of organic and biodynamic farming going on there. So that was interesting. So, all right, excellent, Sebastian. I really appreciate you spending a few minutes with me today, and I think you gave us some good insight into what's going on in Chile with Concha y Toro and the wines and the wine styles. So, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, and thanks to everyone. And again, enjoy the wines. I think that you're going to be for a treat. So thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.